accused of stealing and embezzling electricity from employer. For almost 2 decades I worked security in office buildings, night shift, so I could work on my novel drafts. At work, in the idle hours between rounds and other security duties, I wrote on an iPad with Bluetooth keyboard, and I had connected their chargers to the electric outlets in my security reception desk. I get a lot of comments on how I should not write at work, and that was why I was singled out. These commenters are wrong. They do not understand that my work was guarding an empty office after hours between 23:00 to 7:00 hours. This involved a maximum of 2 hours of actual work, walking rounds, checking if all the keycards had been returned, answering phone calls, leaving 6 hours to pass the time and stay awake. Most of my coworkers filled that time with non-productive activities like watching TV, playing games, filling out crossword puzzles. Others were college students who studied for their exams or wrote on their thesis. And I knew this beforehand, which is why I chose a low-paying job way below my level, specifically because I would have hours to read books and write on my novels. They could only fire me if I fell asleep or did not follow up on alarms, but not for spending the idle hours writing. I had a manager who had a personal problem with me and tried to get me fired. Since I performed my duties above average, he had to find a way to get me on something else. So, one day, I was called to HQ for a meeting with my manager and a floozy from HR. A young female intern from the Human Resources Department, who spent the whole meeting flirting with my idiot manager, who was married to the company owner's daughter. I was accused of theft, stealing electricity from my laptop. I told them that if they wanted to accuse me, they had to do it properly. I had not committed theft, I had committed embezzlement, since the electricity was part of my reception area and under my supervision. Therefore, embezzlement is a vastly more insidious crime, and they should send me home and gather the disciplinary committee to judge whether I should be fired for this crime, and I would confer with my union rep. They immediately retracted their accusation and stopped bothering me with their nonsense. All my colleagues charged their devices from company outlets, so their accusation would mean every employee could be arrested for electricity embezzlement. Then the irate manager hung up a sign in the security area that nobody was allowed to charge their personal devices. So I took a typewriter to work, so I did not need to charge my writing implements. Also, I had a Nokia that would hold a charge for several days. But my coworkers had smartphones that needed juice, so they got angry at management for signs about not being allowed to charge their phones, and that complaint spread to other locations, forcing the management to remove the signs and allow people to charge their phones again. And I could hook up my iPad BT keyboard again. Addendum: the stealing electricity was just a rage-bait excuse to provoke me to get into an emotional outburst to my manager, so he could fire me for insubordination. Instead, my response made him escalate to posting signs about the petty electricity rule that angered my coworkers with management. Commenting on the cost of electricity misses the point. It was never about the theft of electricity. The accusation was intentionally ridiculous to provoke a quarrel. Also, in the Netherlands, the novel that I write is my intellectual property, and there is no legal clause in our contracts that the company should get financially compensated for part of the novel. Been writing under company time.